Welcome to your English project for the next couple of weeks. We're going to be looking at the Great Barrier Reef through geography and English as well. But we're looking at making a non-chronological report for your English lessons. So we're going to start off. This is just going to be sort of a quick revision reminder lesson on non-chron reports, and then we're looking at just the introduction today. Okay, you don't want to go blaring off and doing everything in one go. Because we're going to be adding to things throughout the weeks anyway, and we're going to try and make it as normal as possible for you, where we're going to have a first draft, we're going to try and edit it, and then we're going to have a final draft, nice written up in neat sort of thing by the end of the next couple of weeks as well. So don't go crazy and do it all in one go. We want to try and just stick to the plan. Okay, so we're going to be looking at then, if I get rid of that, we're looking at, first of all, try and remind ourselves of the features of a non-chronological report. There are around, I'd say, 5 or 6 main features that you want to look at. So if you just pause the video now and try and just come up with a bullet point list of the features that you want to be looking at for a non-chronological report. If I give you a clue, you're looking at something like formal language will be a first sort of thing I'm looking at. Okay, that'll be a first feature. So pause the video and come up with, can't even spell language, and come up with your own features for your non-chronological report. Off you go. Okay, so hopefully you've come up with about 5 or 6 different sorts of things. I've come up with, so we want formal language. Now this is how my mind works. You might want to do something like this on a piece of paper where you're just like mapping things out. You've seen me write on my classroom board quite a few times where there's just notes all over the place. Go with it. Okay, things that come up in your head. So formal language, we want no contractions. So contractions, I'm going to put there, and then a big cross next to it. You don't want any contractions. In fact, I was going to put technical language, but I'm going to put like sort of technical, I can't spell today, technical language. And that's sort of the language that only goes with what we're talking about. So the Great Barrier Reef sort of thing. So that's like your scientific language, your scientific vocabulary. Scientific, have I spelled that one right today? Yes, vocab. Okay, so that I was going to put that as your formal language, but actually that's one by itself. Technical language is scientific vocab. What tense is it written in then? It's actually written most of the time in present tense, because you're telling someone, you're informing them of something that is now as such. But you could also have bits where you've got past tense, because we might be talking about the history of something, in this case the history of the Great Barrier Reef. Okay, we also want to stick to, if we're looking at a non-chronological report, it's nice and easy, we want to stick to the facts. All right, I'm not interested in people's opinions and things. I'm not interested in any sort of speech or anything like that. I want just the facts that we've got there. What does it look like as well? That's something else I'm trying to think about. So we've also got headings and subheadings. Now remember, just because you've got a subheading, that doesn't mean that that is just one paragraph. You can have many paragraphs underneath one subheading. So like I've mentioned, if you're looking at the history of the Great Barrier Reef, that one paragraph could be about that one section could be around 2 or 3 paragraphs long as well. All right, so that's sort of your basic features of a non-chronological report. If I've missed anything else out there that you're screaming at the screen about now, put it in the comments on Class Dojo. The other one, Google Classroom. Also, something that I want you to have a go at, we don't usually get time in the class to do this, so it'd be really nice to use this time creatively. I want you, because this is a feature as well, to look at pictures, drawing your own pictures, and also with captions as well. Okay, and with these pictures and your captions, you can also have, what do I mean, like labels as well. Okay, so it could be sort of like a diagram or something you want to try and draw. You could come up with labels, and also if you've got labels, you've got to use a ruler then to draw those straight lines. All right, so that's looking at the features of a non-chronological report. Pause it now, take a picture of it so you know that you're going to include everything, and we're then going to move on to what your non-chronological report is actually going to include. Now, like I said, we're just looking at we need a heading there, don't we, to start off with. We're just looking at the introduction today. So that is your first section, your introduction And what we're going to include in the introduction, probably what is it? What is it and why is it special? What is it and why is it special then? Why are we talking about it? Okay. Something else that we might look at as well is something called marine life. Now, some of you might have heard me saying that about geography on Monday when we were looking at David Attenborough's website. Marine life, anything to do with marine, means to do with the water, okay, as in the oceans or something. So submarine, all right. So marine life, a submarine goes under the water. So like water life then is what we're looking at there. So we're looking at you know, the animals that live there, the what am I thinking of there? What's it called? Well, the habitats. There you go. The habitats. I had a proper thinking face on then. The habitats as well, and you could also look quite deeply into like food chains of sort. Might have to look on how to spell this, because this comes up quite a lot when you look at marine life, especially in the Great Barrier Reef. Something called a symbiotic relationships. Now that, you would sound like such a scientist if you use this inside your non-cron. Symbiotic means two things that are living side by side and helping each other out. Okay, so for instance, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure there's I think it's like a fish and some sort of crab that live next to each other in the Great Barrier Reef, and one helps the other one out. Okay, so one might provide the food and one might provide the protection. Okay, so there's loads and loads of symbiotic relationships in the Great Barrier Reef going off. I mentioned it before. You might want to look at the history as well of the Great Barrier Reef. So how was it formed? How was it formed? How was it discovered? Need a question mark there. Who discovered it? Can you see that there? I'm not writing too far, am I? Who discovered it? And then we could also have, what else could we have there? How was it formed? Who discovered it? Oh, we could also have the people who used to live there. I think they were called the first coral people. People who used to live there. Okay, now that's as far as I'm going to go, because what I want you guys to think of now, we're going to get a chance to write this whole thing. Obviously today we're just looking at the introduction, but I want you to come up with maybe 2 or 3 other paragraphs or other subheadings that you want to write about based on your research from earlier on in the week. Okay, so you might think, Mr. Barker, you need to write about this, and then you could then come up with that subheading and comment in the class, the Google Classroom as well, because then I can then make videos or use those ideas in my next videos. Okay, so that's sort of a sort of plan that we're looking at. Obviously then write your own ideas next to it as well. And now if I just sort of show you something that I've written regarding the introduction, just so you've got an idea of what to include. So I'm going to somehow move my laptop over here, and then look at this camera work. Yes, there we go. There's my what's the name? No one actually came up with a name, did they? If I try and zoom in a bit, there you go, kangaroo there. So that's my introduction that I've got here. So if I try and sort of talk through my thinking. So I've got the Great Barrier Reef is considered to be a natural wonder of the world. A lot of people think it is a collection of rocks underneath the ocean, but it is in fact an enormous living organism made up of over 3,000 individual reefs, which can be found off the east coast of Australia. Now with that information I've got there, I got it from this book. So if you go back to a few weeks ago when I gave you this work, especially on like chapter 1 and 2, so there, so I've got where is the Great Barrier Reef and the first reef people as well. These sort of chapters, we did quite a bit of comprehension on them. That's where I've got this information from, but obviously you've got it from when you did the thing on the Attenborough website as well. This beautiful phenomenon can even be seen from outer space, as it is more than 1,400 miles long. At this point in the world, a myriad of species can be found hunting, living and breeding as they make this wonderful place their home. Now, I'm not saying that's the perfect introduction, but it's just something to go off give you some ideas to go off, and then you can make your perfect introduction. I have also coloured these in regarding going to the rainbow grammar that we use as well. All right, so I did this on purpose just to sort of see for myself the different sentence structures I'm using. So I've started off with a simple sentence at the start. I then used a compound sentence because I've got my fanboy in there. I then also used some complex sentences towards the end. So it just sort of proves to myself, I did that to myself just to make sure that I've got a range of sentences in there, and I'm using the correct punctuation as I'm doing it. As this project moves on until later on into the week and into next week, we'll be adding more spag focuses into it, okay? So don't try and cram as many spag things as you can. If you can think of a sentence using brackets or a dash of some sort, or even a question tag you could put in there, then go for it. That's excellent. But there will be chance later on to add into it and edit the work, because like I said before, we're trying to make it as normal as possible, where we're going to do a first draft, edit it, and then do your final draft towards the end. Okay, if you've got any questions, whack them in at the bottom of Google Classroom. Hope this was helpful for you to start your project off. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with.